Yo, good evening. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. Hope that we are well. And we're enjoying the long bank holiday weekend. Welcome to this episode 42 of the Always Better Than Yesterday interview sessions. Let me just send a few invites while people are humping on. That is not what I meant. While people are hopping or jumping on. What a way to get those two words confused. So here we are. Happy Sunday, one and all. Just sending out some invites now. And we will get cracking. So, if you're catching up on the podcast or YouTube, or this is the first time you've ever checked out an interview session, let me just say thank you. Thank you for taking the time, spending the time with us. Any time spent with us is greatly, greatly appreciated. And I hope that it adds you a lot of value. Hope there's something within this time and space that's going to just provoke something within you to pursue in your own kind of journeys, really. Sending a couple of invites out. Please do give it a good share if you're on. Push my face and share it. That would be lovely. Let's get as many people on as we possibly can and enjoying the conversation on this Sunday evening. There we go. That'll do. Plenty of invites gone out. Happy days. So who is online? Happy days. So my guest is there. He's good to go. Okay, so here we go. Episode 42, which means I've spent 41 episodes speaking with inspiring and successful people, and tonight is no different. The idea of this interview session simply came from being a curious little monkey and wanting to learn from people that inspired me. Learning from their habits, their mindset, and using this platform not just to keep that to myself, but to share that with other people. Now, really excited to bring on my guest. I won't say too much about him. As are you, Angela. I appreciate you. Hey, Jem. Good to see you. There we go. So let's just himself. But I'm really looking forward to tonight. It'll be a great session, and I hope that it adds you some value. Hello, my friend.
Hello, hang on. Sorry, man.
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Very good, mate. I can hear my voice, though.
How's that?
It sounds good. How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. How are you?
Very, very good, my friend. So, do me and the community watching and listening the privilege of introducing your good self.
Yeah, so is that, can you see me okay?
Yes, see you fine.
Cool. So, yeah, my name's Cameron, as you can see and you guys can see. And I'm from Australia, and I grew up in Western Australia in a little conservative mining town, and while that was great for the sort of community spirit, I was never really surrounded with people who were striving for something a bit different, and absolutely nothing wrong with that. But that's actually what drove my curiosity whenever I would leave the town, go to the big city, and people were doing it. If anyone was doing anything a little bit alternative or different, I was like, wow, what makes the difference in people? I was always curious about people and what sort of shapes them, and so a lot of that I think has to do with the environment, obviously.
Yeah.
And the environment we're in creates a completely different life for ourselves. And so I'm still passionate about that today. So basically, I did a lot of travel in my 20s. I actually went over to London at some point, and South America. I went to Asia and a lot of Southeast Asia, and that was a super important period.
What did that
Did
give
some
you?
volunteer work. Um, uh, at the time, it gave me a lot of perspective
Hmm.
on the world,
Yeah.
and I ended up pursuing some volunteer work at a human trafficking prevention
Hmm.
organization. So that was a huge learning point for me. That actually led me to want to do work on a deeper level with people.
Mm.
So I went to university and studied uh, like sociology
Hmm.
and community development, and but then again at the same time, looking back, I feel like I was also running from something, and I also feel that I didn't have a real strong sense of community,
Hmm.
which I do now. Like I don't have the urge to travel at all now,
Yeah.
and having kids, obviously, as you know, creates that sense of home,
Hmm.
forced sense of home, and but it's actually I realized that I was probably searching for something through all that travel that I didn't have at home.
Hmm.
So that's a bit of a reflection on that time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about your story. Tell me a little bit about kind of what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so for the last uh, 4 years, I've worked in mental health,
Hmm.
doing support work and some community work, and also a bit with people with disabilities.
Mm.
And for the past year particularly, I've started working with people more on one-on-one basis, like doing some coaching, and that's literally been just massively life-changing. The last 12
Mm.
months, particularly growth-wise, has just been out of control,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to talk about mindset in a minute, but once I really understood mindset, I never understood it until quite recently, which,
Mm.
like I said, in the last 12 months, and that sent me on a really different path.
Yeah. What got you into that? How did you come across that?
Um, it was a number of books,
Hmm.
and also a number of I think a number of life lessons.
Mm.
Certain things happened, and on reflection, I started to get curious about why so many people might have a target or a goal, and you know this from coaching. You know what you want to do, and you do something completely different. People zigzag their way to this goal and end up circling around it and going back to where they were before.
Hmm.
And I had done that for years. And literally, the thing that really has driven me to help others and create change for others is the fact that literally, when I realized all this mindset stuff, I realized that it had probably been 6 or 7 years of doing that,
Mm.
and it got me really annoyed and
Yeah.
really frustrated, and I wanted to master mindset
Hmm.
and be able to achieve anything I wanted to achieve, and I believe that's possible for anyone with the right mindset.
Yeah. With so say there's someone watching or listening to this, and they're doing that zigzag that you're talking about. Kind of what sort of practical things worked or really helped for you along that journey?
Yeah, so I always used to get ideas,
Hmm.
and I had these really cool ideas, right? And I would I would look at what I wanted to do, and then I would um, so I wouldn't have a specific target. That's the
Hmm.
first thing. So if you're setting any goal, make it really specific. Like not I want to get rich. I want to I want to earn an extra, you know, $28,000. Make it ridiculously specific, and then you're pulling yourself towards that number, or it might be losing weight or whatever it is. the other thing was finding a really compelling why.
Mm-hmm.
Like, common in all personal development literature, like Think and Grow Rich, all of the great books on personal development,
Mm-hmm.
it talks about you need to know exactly why and what it means to you. That's a couple of really practical things people can do, because if you can always go back to something, especially with having a really strong why, especially now that I've got kids, that's very, very easy. Like, mindset has made me a better parent, and and I want to not just like dabble in things. I want to master things, because if and this is something that happened at Tony Robbins, right? We looked into the future and felt this insane pain around, if you kept on going like the way you are and you're not taking the certain action you need to, how does that feel in 10 years? And that's something I do with my clients now, like looking at, some of the things you've achieved in your life, and then looking at what you want to maybe do. Especially with kids, I feel there's like so much pain around, if you can associate, I guess, more pain with not taking action, then if you weren't taking action in 10 years, how's your relationship going to be with your kids?
Yeah.
You're not going to have the time you want. And then those short-term actions that we take that are sending us not to our goal won't happen anymore. So that's a super powerful tool that I use now.
Love that. I'm sure we'll come on to your podcast very shortly, but we have a guest in common, which is Adam Bokut. So Adam Bokut was episode number 1 for me, and I know he was I think your episode 4, and I think he talks quite passionately about his son Zachary, and yeah, it's amazing. Do you know? Because I work a lot with purpose and why, and do you know your why?
Yeah. So most of the things that I strive towards, I'm starting a group coaching program in July, and I've been writing that as we speak. And one of the things that I'm tying into that is for people to find their core value. So that's something that's really helped me. So I've found that if you can really simplify things that you do, then you're much more likely to do them. If it's like even starting a podcast, which we'll talk about, before I had all of the growth mindset and the right mindset mastery to doing things, I would have thought of that idea, and then I would have said, okay, how am I going to do it? And I would have thought of, how do I start a podcast? How do I launch it? How do I publish it? How do I market it? And I wouldn't have done anything, because it would have. So back to my point was that now that everything I do, I tie to service. That's my core value. So coaching, how can I serve others the best I possibly can?
Yeah.
With the podcast, how can this podcast serve the world? And so I write that down, and as much as my kids drive me to want to earn a side income, and then I can give them experiences, and I feel the pleasure of that, and how amazing that would be to so that drives me in one sense. But the core value of service, which Adam has helped me with as well, tying that into everything I do has been a massive game changer.
Yeah, love that. In your journey, what's really helped you? So you talked a little bit about growth mindset. Tell me a bit about what you think growth mindset is and how you've developed your own.
So, especially like I said, in the last 12 months, there's been a lot of massive changes for me, and one of them was literally just reading Carol Dweck's theory on growth mindset. I literally just read the summary of that, and I was like, oh my goodness, my fixed mindset is killing me. Like, every time I thought of some idea for a business, or something that I might want to do. Even little things like cooking a new meal, like ridiculous things, I would say to myself, oh, that's a bit hard, or you can't do that. So growth mindset, for me, is looking at life, and there might be something you want to do in your life. I encourage everyone to read about growth mindset. So there might be something you want to do in your life, and we tend to talk ourselves out of everything. And one of the things about growth mindset is you realize that special people don't have special skills. They have gotten those skills within some limitation, like people have disabilities and all sorts of things that restrict them from doing certain specific things, but essentially you can get the skills. That's what growth mindset is. For me, it's like whenever I want to pursue something now, and this has changed my kids' life, because I'm actually writing a book with my daughter, my 6-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
And it's around growth mindset and achieving anything you want, because that's what growth mindset is to me. It's like if you have a dream, and if it seems ridiculous, like, and huge and out of this world, if you work hard enough for long enough, you'll get there.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. What are some of the ways that you and even maybe your little one have started to implement growth mindset strategies? What sort of things would you do?
So with something very simple, and my daughter loves this. She's 6, like I said. I've got a 3-year-old as well, but my 6-year-old mainly. She'll say if she ever says I can't do something, she always says yet at the end.
Yeah.
That's a classic growth mindset strategy, where no matter what it is, she will always say, oh, I can't. Like, she's asking me about driving a car. When can I drive a car? And I'm like, in 11 years, please. And she's like, oh, I can't do that. And yet she always adds yet at the end. Great. And some of the things like that she's learning is that, like, I'm running a marathon this year.
Well done.
And I've started the podcast, and I've started the coaching, and she's seeing all of that.
Yeah.
So my ability to shift my mindset, I wouldn't have done all of these things in the past. They would have died in my mind or on my lips, because they literally, every time I, like I said, thought of a goal or something, I would think of how complicated it would be, and I wouldn't do it. I'd move on to something a bit easier. And so growth mindset has really radically changed so many areas of my life.
Yeah, I love that. My son is he's getting the I love a tricky challenge mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can adopt that kind of mindset of I love a tricky challenge, I'm someone who loves a tricky challenge, then you don't mind showing up, and even if you fail, you've kind of learned something.
For sure. And that's a great thing to address as a parent for a young kid, because you think about children's brains as sponges, and especially up to the age of 8, if they're developing habits like that, like, you know, they're not going to be as restricted. Yeah. You know, when they're older, it won't take them as long.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I saw your video a few days ago talking about imposter syndrome, and I've been there myself, my friend. But if there's anything I'd say to you right now, is you need to write that book. There is not enough books like that out there for parents like me to sit with my son and read a fun and engaging growth mindset based book for children. So you've got to get that book written.
Yeah, it'll be, like I said, co-written by my daughter.
Amazing.
And I do some work away from home at the moment, and every time I get home, she says, "Dad, did you write any more?" Because what happens is I'll write some pages of the book, and I'll go home and she'll edit them. She's like, "No, Dad, you can't." She's telling me what should happen, and she actually makes the book really fun because she's a 6-year-old. That's who the books are for. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been life changing, and I feel really proud that she's experiencing this as a kid and doing these things. And I always say to people, like, having a growth mindset and like having big goals and dreams, it's not about achieving something. It's about becoming someone. And if I didn't go for some of the things I have in the past 12 months, I wouldn't have learnt the lessons that I did. So what's been my real pain point is that in the last 6 to 10 years, when I wasn't growing and I wasn't moving forward as a person, I was dabbling in lots of things. The pain point is that I didn't pursue things enough to learn the lessons. And that's another growth mindset strategy, is like, you're not going to succeed at everything. There's going to be a lot of failing, and every failure brings a great lesson, and you're ready for the next challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Adam Boker is on. Adam, good to see you, my friend. We shouted you out earlier. It's amazing to have you with us. And Sarah comments, she said affirmations. She does affirmations with her son every morning, and they make a huge difference. Do you have any experience of affirmations?
For myself, yes. And not with my kids.
Would you share them with us?
Okay, so I haven't been doing them lately, which is, you know what, like, on reflection, I haven't been feeling as powerful lately, and I think affirmations are a great way of, I wouldn't say manifesting what you want in your life, but it's like constantly you're putting, neuro connections to your brain that you are this, and that's actually a great reminder, because like you said, I'm dealing with imposter syndrome at the moment, and affirmations are a perfect way to alleviate that, because I am so my affirmations were like a set of I ams. I think I had 10 I ams that I would say every morning. Like, I am strong, I am a world-class coach. I can't actually remember them all, but along those lines, I'm confident. All of the things that I've struggled with in the past. So I'll get back onto them. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And let's get on to your Tony Robbins experience. Tell me a bit more about that. When did you go? And
Yep. So I went in September, and I honestly didn't know much about him. My partner went in May. She went to like a 1-day event, and her mum dragged her to that. She didn't want to go, and she came back home, and she was, wanted to start a business, and after half a day, she was like a completely different person. And I was like, who is this guy? And then I watched his documentary, and I ended up going to the 4-day event in Sydney, and it was just, it's hard to put into words the experience, the overall experience. I'm sure some people who may listen to this have already been, but it really unleashes I think we get into habits, right? Whether we're in good habits or bad habits, we all have habitual behaviors that we do every day that we sometimes don't even think about. It's like you're on a program, and the biggest thing I'll say about that event is you literally reprogram your mind. So that's why people leave his events, and he's famous for this. Like, people leave his events and they may end a relationship, and as sad as that is, it's because the truth comes from all that reprogramming, and or someone might, like, I decided to run a marathon. Like, I don't even know where that came from, but you lose all the fear around what you can do in your life. You sort of reprogram your mind, and you start taking action immediately. Like it's not some motivation thing. It's actually that's the biggest misconception about Tony Robbins, I think, is that it's you feel good and that's it. It's not. It's like I use the tools that we learnt in that 4 days. I'll use them for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Some of those tools, if you want me to share, is like the pain pleasure thing.
Yes.
So essentially, what Tony says is all progress starts with pain, and what I realized at the event was that I had avoided pain my whole life. I didn't even try things because they might be painful, so I didn't even get to the point of pain. So what he says is most people, short term, they'll eat the chocolate, they'll eat the cake, they won't do the exercise, they won't start the business because the thought of it is more painful than the pleasure of the certainty that they get from their old habits. So what you do is that's what Adam shared in his podcast episode was he saw his son in 10 years, right? Can you imagine the pain of this? I had a very similar experience where I saw my daughter as like a 20-year-old, and if I kept parenting and talking to her the way I did at the time, she would have, and I saw her slam the door in my face, not talk to me, disconnected, and honestly, I was bawling my eyes out for a good 15 minutes, and the pain of that has forever changed me. Wow. And that's why I urge people to go to his events, because I try to do that exercise with people now, but it's way more powerful when there's 8,000 other people in a room. I think he was in London couple of weeks ago. I think it was like 12 or 14,000 people.
Crazy. Yeah.
And can you imagine doing that exercise with that many people? There were people like wailing and bawling their eyes out, and it's like your life just changes in an instant because you associate so much pain with those short-term behaviors that you don't even, it takes no willpower to not do them again, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Right at the core. Gets right to the core. So you're now a podcast host. Tell us a little bit about that. Where did the inspiration come from that? And tell us about the moment you just decided to get that on the road, get that going.
That's another thing that came from. I've spoken a lot about mindset and the changes that have come in the last 12 months, but from going to Tony Robbins in September, one thing I got was a lot of clarity, and we are clouded with thoughts, with our environment, like I said earlier, dictates a lot of what we feel and think. So at that event I got so much clarity. Like I knew I had to run the marathon. I didn't know immediately that I wanted to start the podcast, but you know what, like I've always had a passion for interviewing people. And blogging. I always had a blog or something like that. Nothing ever really became popular or was. I just did it because I enjoyed it. And then I don't even know where the idea for the podcast came from, but it was literally same with the marathon. I don't even know what happened there, but I'm doing it. And the podcast, I actually started by interviewing Adam. I started a podcast that was very vague. It had no real specific issue it was addressing. It was just like a bit of mental health mindset. I interviewed Adam about suicide and some really serious topics, but it had no real core thing. And after going to Tony Robbins, I was like, what? That was just ridiculous. Like that was the most insane thing I've ever done. I wonder what everyone else felt. Yeah. So I started asking some people. Then I was like, there must be something on YouTube or a podcast. And I was looking and I couldn't find anything. And that's how great businesses start. Like the person who starts them sees there's there's a problem that needs to be solved.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, I want to do a podcast. I'm doing this really vague one, so I'm going to make it really specific. And so I now, I'm a host of a podcast. I literally just interview people who have been to Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very specific. It's not for everyone, but for the people who have been, it's a great way of reminding them of what's possible.
Mm.
And also, my main mission is that with that, like we talked about earlier, was service. So I believe that his events are just insanely powerful and life-changing. And my experience of that, I've touched on it briefly, has been absolutely profound. And so the main thing is I hope that people listen and go. And service, like if I talked to Adam a little bit about this, like if we can do something and it touches one person,
Mm-hmm.
then that's a massive win. You know, your posts or your blogs or your podcast might not be heard by millions of people, but if one person listens and takes action, changes their life,
Absolutely.
It's all worth it.
I love that. Change the world for one person at a time. And I think that there's a couple of people within the We Are Always Better Than Yesterday community that have been to Tony Robbins events. So I shall connect you, and and it'd be great to see you guys connect and share those stories. I've heard a couple of them. It'd be great to see them on your show.
Yeah, cool. I'm always looking for more, and I've had people. The cool thing about this journey with podcasting, especially on this topic, is I've had people message me. So many people. I'm interviewing someone from Maine, in America. Next week. Last week I interviewed someone from Los Angeles. I've got a lady who's written 6 books, and one was a bestseller on Amazon. She's approached me to be interviewed. People are really sort of reaching out to me. That makes it a bit easier, you know.
Yeah, I love that. I'll refer you to Chris Saunders from Colorado and Pierre Anderson from Sweden. Truly worldwide now, you're my friend.
Yeah, truly worldwide.
It's great, and this is the power of social media for good, 100%.
For sure.
So tell us a little bit more about how you help people. What sort of things help you help others?
I'm currently studying neuro-linguistic programming.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know. Have you?
Yeah.
So I'm studying that. I won't be finished for a few months, but I find that those tools. I mean, I've semi-studied psychology and a few other things before, but I find that neuro-linguistic program is like straight to the juggernaut.
Mm-hmm.
Like no messing around. It's one of the tools that Tony Robbins uses. So I wouldn't say I'm using that much at the moment. That's the tool that I want to use mostly. At the moment, like just the power of words. So to answer your question, I do some coaching. I'm potentially moving into a more specific niche soon, which is like podcast coaching, because that makes a lot of sense. I've had a lot of requests, like how do I start a podcast? From basic to like, I didn't say before, but my podcast has been downloaded about 30,000 times in 2 months.
Amazing. So
people are like starting to go, hey, how do you start a successful podcast? Like I could use that as a side hustle. So naturally people are asking me questions. So I'm like, oh, maybe that could be my really specific thing that I do. It's transition at the moment, but at the moment I'm just doing some mindset coaching with a few people, and I use questions like, you know, what's your grand vision for your life? And then I get people to write down specific things like a house by the water. You know, they actually vision their kids running around and like, you know, what's the exact place you want to be? And then we reverse engineer it, like what would that take? And then I also look at I like to focus on one thing. I don't know if you've read the book The One Thing.
Not yet.
Not yet. It's a great book, and that's really helped me. So I believe like narrowing your focus
Mm-hmm.
and getting really specific with what you're doing improves other areas of your life.
Yeah.
Even if we go back a little bit, so when I decided to do the marathon, right?
Mm.
Very specific, yeah. That it's as specific as you could be. Like I knew the date, I knew the time, I knew I knew what I needed to do. So basically, I started to train for this marathon. I felt better. I started eating better. I was sleeping less. I had more energy. I had more clarity. So then the podcast started.
Yeah.
I believe because of the marathon. So then the podcast started. The coaching started. I started doing these things. Then I was around more incredible people every week, interviewing them. So my proximity to, inspiring people and then so I think by starting on one thing, you improve other areas of your life naturally.
Yeah, I love that.
So I like to do that. I like to really look at people's passions, and a lot of the time, people aren't pursuing them the way they could be. So then it's just about, as you know, as a coach, you have to get people to take action. There has to be, if you're going to see them again in 2 weeks, they have to, be able to come back and say, I did this, because what's the point in coaching? So getting people to take really specific action and, a good question I like to ask is like, I think, and people listening can do this as well. Like, say you've got a passion that you're not pursuing, right? I get people to get really like, get in a better physical state, and if you're like down there like this, okay, what would I do? You're not going to take the same action. So I get them to get really, powerful in the way they're standing, and then say, if you were the best in the world at this, if you were absolutely certain that there's no doubt that you could achieve anything with whatever the passion is, what action would you take? So if you were absolutely certain, no doubt in your mind, no fear of failure, no self-doubt, what would you do? And usually that's what they need to do, whatever they say. Because fear can paralyze us.
Yeah.
And self-doubt and all of those things, and it being, it might be a bit hard, or I might be a failure. So you just don't do anything. And my experience of that and the pain around it has allowed me to help others.
Love that.
I
love that. My coaching ethos is all around helping people, teams, organizations be always better than yesterday. Just curious to know what comes to mind when I say the phrase always better than yesterday.
Yeah, I had to think about this one. Look, I think we're always going to have roadblocks, no matter how, like, I've achieved a lot in the last year, I think, and I've had days and weeks where I had doubted myself, struggled. Like, even if you have a good mindset, it's not going to be there every day. So I wouldn't say that term doesn't exactly mean to me that, grow every day, achieve your goals, because there's going to be days where you feel like crap and you go back to your old habits and you sleep in and you don't show up. So I think for starters, people need to not be so hard on themselves. But that actual term to me means on a regular basis, you need to consistently grow. And I'm not saying every day. Like I said, that's a hard thing to do. But if you have a set of routines that are non-negotiable, if you can do your best to do them every day, and work towards something, that's how humans survive. That's how we grow. That's how we evolve. And that's the biggest thing I've realized recently, is that you need to grow to live.
Of that. And how can people connect with you? How can they find you? How can they see more of your content?
So you can find my podcast on any of the platforms. It's everywhere. So it's called the Tony Robbins Impact Podcast, Personal Stories of Transformation. But if you just search, I can give you a link.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, share it in the comments. That'd be great.
Yeah. So that's my main project actually. Like, I started off. I was like, I want a coaching business, so I started building that, and then I was on the side. I was like, yeah, a podcast might be cool to do on the side, and it's totally switched. Like, the podcast has been my main thing now, and there's a lot of things I can do with that, as far as marketing and actually getting, making an income from it, and making it more sustainable long term. So that's become my main thing, to be honest. I don't even have a coaching page. Like, people can definitely follow me on Facebook. I post a lot of content like you see. A few times a week I'll post something that I'm going through. I like to keep it really honest, because I really don't like people who I like everyone, but I don't like seeing people who consistently just say these, positive, which, everyone goes through stuff. So I like to be real and raw with what I post. I can give you a link to my profile to put in this, the podcast show notes, and on the Facebook live video. Definitely. That's fine.
Amazing. Yeah. Absolutely, guys, girls. If you've been watching, listening, you've been inspired by what Cameron's been sharing, then I urge you, please do connect, go follow more of his content. Please do share this video. Don't just share it on your timeline if you don't want to, but just share it in the inbox of that one person that you feel is going to benefit from spending time listening to us talk. And yeah, my good friend, thank you so much for joining me. Best of luck with the rest of your podcast. The fact that you've got over 30,000 downloads already, it's helping, and it's making a difference in the world, which I love.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thank you. Well, I just want to say thanks for having me on, and I love your mission and the title of this show. And just to everyone watching, just one final thing I'll say is, this has helped me more than anything, actually. And I didn't touch on it because it's not really about growth and mindset and all that sort of stuff. But the biggest thing that has helped me is gratitude.
Yeah.
So every morning, if I can recommend anything, just wake up. It might be just writing down one thing that you're grateful for. Yeah. It might be, I do an exercise where I end up having three things that I'm grateful for. Some people like to keep a journal. I don't do that, but just start your day with gratitude, because it really centers you and aligns you, and if you're trying to, let's say, make $1 million, you'll get there and be ungrateful and unfulfilled if you don't appreciate the moment, if you don't appreciate every day and the journey every day. I believe that gratitude is the most powerful tool anyone can use.
I love that. Well, tonight, my friend, I'm grateful for you. And I don't even need to ask you to leave a final thought, because you've already gone there yourself. So I'm very, very grateful for you. Thank you for taking the time. And to the people that have joined, grateful to you also. Thank you for taking the time out to spend a day or some time with us. And I'd love to know your comments. If you've got any feedback, if you've got any questions for Cameron, please do drop them in. We'll dip in and out of the comments and make sure we respond to each and every one of you. And I hope that we all have a great week. Set yourself up to win and enjoy the rest of the bank holiday. Do you have bank holidays, Easter bank holidays in Australia?
Yeah, it's a public holiday today.
Amazing. Well, have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. And I didn't realize you were going to ask me to leave a final thought, but
would you like to leave another one?
I did it early, didn't I?
It's cool. Do you have a final thought?
My final thought. So yeah, obviously gratitude, like I've just said, that's huge. That's huge. And I think if people have a goal that they see that they might think in their head is too big, think of this. If you took, like, if you want to write a book, for example,
Mm-hmm.
if you just wrote for a few minutes a day for
Mm-hmm.
10 years, like I always talk to people about compound interest, right? You don't see the
Mm.
results of compound interest if you've got money in a share portfolio that's slow. You don't see returns for 7, 8, 9, 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same with mastering a skill. So if people have something they want to do and they think that's not for me, I'm not a business owner, I'm not a book writer, I'm not a podcast host.
Mm.
These are all the things that used to go through my head.
Mm.
Uh, if you can take small amounts of action over a long period of time,
Mm.
you can master anything and create your dream life. That's we're only here once,
Yeah,
and that's what I urge people to do.
love that. Love that. And I think just to add on to the back of that, I think how do you take those, just reflecting on my own personal journey, because what you've touched on there is very in line with kind of how I see myself. And it's that purpose, it's that reason for why. Because, you know, there are going to be days where you think, am I not making progress? There's going to be days where it's going to be tough. There's going to be days where imposter syndrome, whatever those things are going to be.
Mm.
And to keep you focused on the long term, I think it all starts with purpose.
Yeah, for sure. And having your compelling why.
Absolutely. Mate, this has been a great conversation. I look forward to connecting more with you again in future. All the very best of your podcast and have a great week. Guys and girls, thank you for tuning in. Please do push our faces right now. Either give a good follow, connect, or even share if you'd like to do that. But I hope you all have a great week. Much love, everybody.
Thank you.